hope to talk with you all next week.
She's not politically correct.
Pardon?
She's not politically correct.
She's not politically correct. Thank God.
Thank you so much, Nancy. We certainly appreciate it. An appetizer like that, she's waiting for the main meal now. Boy, this is going to be powerful. Incidentally, I might mention that we are looking for people who are willing to sign up for the People's Grand Jury. And if you'll just, none of us passing out the pads now, so just circulate these if you'd like to serve. We'd like to have you join and make a difference. And let's get our government back again. And I'd like now to introduce to you Anthony Hilder, the author of Lucifer 2000, the Illuminati and CFR recordings, and also the Warlords of Washington. Dr. Anthony Hilder.
There isn't anything that you have, ever had, or ever hope to have that they're not planning on taking away. I'm telling you that we are in World War III. The siege is on. It's not happening somewhere else. It's happening right here. There's a land grab. There's black projects. There's the genetic engineering of AIDS. Is it for real? This is no hype. There's no hoopla. It's for real. Are we going to survive? Probably not, unless we incite a revolution to avoid a revolution. Clinton says, you say you want a revolution, but are we willing to pay the price? The price? You better find out about the price. That's everything that you have. Your life, your wife, your money, everything. From ground up. They want it all. They want a cashless society by the year 2000. They want to have the abolition of the United States of America, and this means that they're going to have to bring about gun registration, gun confiscation. Several years ago, I realized that. I started putting together some product that would address this particular issue. We put out some posters. Gun registration equals youth extermination. This happened in Poland. It happened in Czechoslovakia. It happened in Cuba. It happened in China. It's happening here. Janet Reno, the new, well, maybe, I guess Hillary thinks she's the best man for the job. She says that we've got to do, first have gun registration and then gun confiscation. And I say that National Socialism and communism are the same. Adolf Hitler said on February 5th, 1941, he said, basically National Socialism and Marxism are the same. The whole of National Socialism is based on it. And when socialism triumphs, freedom fails. Is it possible to put out posters to convey this message? Yes. Put out another one. Gun registration equals mass extermination. What's happening at the Branch Davidian? What's happening? It's Warsaw in WACO. 1943 and 1993. The same scenario. What happens? These are some of the dead. Get on the bandwagon, register your gun. A grisly poster. But it conveys a message. People say, oh my God, you're not serious. Well, I'm damn serious. And you must awaken. I put this message in a tape called Lucifer 2000, talking about the occult theology and how this all wraps in. If you took a map of Washington, D.C., and laid it out, and then went to the First Church of Satan in San Francisco, and took the Goat of Mendez on a clear plastic sheet, and you laid that image of the Gota Mendez right over the map of Washington, D.C., you're going to find out that they match. And that Illuminati pyramid on the left-hand side of the dollar bill, Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new social order of the ages. These guys had this thing figured out years ago. That 1776 at the base of the pyramid does not signify the birth of this country. It signifies May 1st, 1776, the birth of the Illuminati. Novo Ordo Seclorum. We're talking about a cult here. A massive cult. A cult that operates this country and is out to destroy this country. And I say this, if you don't wake up, you're dead. It's over. It's history. Talking about real cults. I did another poster. And this is a cult you're probably familiar with, Charles Miles Manson. Just another family for peace. Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new social order of the ages. Well, the fellow down in Waco, Texas, is not the head of a cult. The cult is in Washington, D.C. The warlocks of Washington and Wall Street are in charge. And we've got to do something to change it around. I mentioned it before. Basically, National Socialism and Marxism are the same. The whole of National Socialism is based on it. If we can't convey an idea across on the radio, well, we've got to convey it via posters. Lou Epton has been doing a marvelous job. Lou, where are you? Here. Stand up. Stand up here. Can you do that? Where is Lou? Oh, he's over here. Come on up here, please, will you? In 1935, Adolf Hitler registered guns. Well, this is right around the corner. When I say it's right around the corner, it is at the corner. We're there. They're going for it. They're going for it all. Lou, come on over here. You know, we can make a change. In the state of Alaska, I was on the air at KEAG with 100,000 watts. As a result of that, we have the first independent, not Democrat, not Republican, governor in the 20th century. We've got the first state in the United States to have freedom of choice in medicine because of the show. You've got one man here, love God, with a big voice. Please welcome with me Lou Evans.
Thank you very much, Tony, and it's good to see a good turnout here at the People's Grand Jury, because what you're going to hear tonight, what you've already heard from Nancy and what you're hearing from Tony is so damn serious that if we don't do this, it is over. And what I've said on the air, and I'll say it again because it's a personal thing, and I know it is with many of you. How many of you have children and or grandchildren that you care about? How many of you remember what your life was like when you were a youngster, see the changes, and when you look to where we're going, it scares the living hell out of you. It sure does me. And if that's not an incentive to get busy and get this straightened out and get this country back under our control, or maybe get it under our control for the first time, that's a damn good reason. Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to have you with us in Las Vegas, and I want to keep you here as long as we can.
Thank you, Lou. One little Jew with a very good voice. These guys said, but I thought we killed all the Jews, we registered their guns. First register the guns, then register the Jews. As I was coming on the plane, I wrote this little piece. I want you to hear it. It was January of 1943. A Gestapo-led band of Nazi SS agents stormed the Jewish compound in Warsaw, Poland. It was February 27th, 1993, a half-century later. A Gestapo-like band of neo-Nazi ATF agents stormed the Christian compound in Waco, Texas. As it was in Warsaw, so it was in Waco. The stormtroopers waged war against innocent men, women, and children, cutting them down with German machine pistols. As it was in Waco, so it was in Warsaw. The Nazis and the ATF stormtroopers moved in with their black uniforms, combat boots, helmets, and gunning down the innocent, the aged, the women, and the children. As it was in Waco, so it was in Warsaw. The Nazi and ATF agents moved in on a tip from a paid informant. The stormtroopers' siege was to seize weapons they supposedly had hid for their defense. As it was in Waco, so it was in Warsaw. The Christians in Waco and the Jews in Warsaw feared Gestapoized gargantuan government that promised them everything they didn't have while taking away everything that they had away. As it was in Warsaw, so it was in Waco. The Christians in Waco and the Jews in Warsaw kept to themselves. They harmed nobody. Their ghettos had no gates, no armor, no restrictions. All were free to come and go. But the middle-class people of socialist Germany and the middle-class people of socialist America were told by the propaganda press that the Jews in Warsaw and the Christians in Waco practiced contemptible sexual rituals involving children and polarized the thinking of the people. They believed the big lie. In Hitler's Germany and in Hillary's America. As it was in Waco, so it was in Warsaw. The Nazi SS agents called for the establishment of a majority mind thought. Double think, double speak, double cross. The establishment press was sent out to document what they described as devilish and dangerous deeds that they said were happening then in Warsaw. Just as the ATF agents have called for the establishment propaganda press to document what they have discerned is dangerous and devilish deeds that they're now saying happened in Waco. As it was in Warsaw, so it was in Waco. 4 ATF agents, stormtroopers, were killed in the assault on the Christians in Waco. 11 Nazi stormtroopers were killed in the assault on the Jews in Warsaw. As it was in Warsaw, so it was in Waco. And after the Nazis' initial assault upon the Jews in the ghetto in Warsaw, the stormtroopers arranged a temporary truce to allow the children that remained alive to surrender. And after the ATF's initial assault upon the Christians in the church in Waco, the stormtroopers arranged a temporary truce to allow the children that remained alive to surrender. In Waco and Warsaw, the stormtroopers' seemingly benevolent action was done not for the Jewish and Christian children, it was done for their image. As it was in Warsaw, so it is in Waco. The Jews in Warsaw and the Christians in Waco put up fierce resistance to the fascist attack upon their brothers, mothers, wives, and children. And both the rabbis in Warsaw and the reverends in Waco recognized the evils of a national socialistic government. But few listened until it was too late. And the big guns were aimed upon them. As it was in Nazi Germany, so it is in neo-Nazi America. The majority of the population remained politically polarized, paralyzed, and impotent, unable to think or act for themselves. That's as it was in Nazi Germany, and as it is in neo-Nazi America. The herd has always followed the Hitler or Hillary like sheep to the slaughter of society. As it was in Warsaw, so it is in Waco. The majority of the German people in 1943 and the majority of the American people in 1993 believed the big lie, be it of Goebbels or of the government. As it was in Warsaw, so it is in Waco. And when the SS and ATF agents discovered that their victims would rather die free than live enslaved and would fight for their freedom, they brought in armored tanks and mobs of mindless military personnel to kill or incarcerate the Jews and Gentiles who sought to live free from the Hitlerian horror of a New World Order. That's as it was in Warsaw, and as it is in Waco. I take a look at Hillary and Time magazine, it's published by the Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death. Those are those people who lie nude in the coffin and are born again into the satanic order. Interesting group. But is Bill really the president? How much clout, Newsweek says, about Hillary? I know that she is a National Socialist. What does that mean to me? National Socialist means Nazi. Nazi means National Socialist. I think Rush talks about the feminazis. And certainly we have them in control of this country now. I'm deeply concerned about this situation. It's sinking. We're at a ship that's going down. It's going down fast. It's being scuttled in the harbor. I put out a tape with Jordan Maxwell. On this tape, it describes this occult theology, how this thing all wraps together. Behind the banksters and government gangsters that are controlling this show, there is a Luciferian group. And they come out with their signs. They come out with their money. It's their money. It's not ours. The privately owned Federal Reserve is neither federal nor is it a reserve. It's a private banking institution, and they print that fiat funny money for less than a penny a note. They lend it back to the U.S. Treasury in exchange for interest-bearing notes. They own the notes. They get the interest. They get the gold. You get the shaft. We have to abolish the privately owned Federal Reserve. We have to abolish the Internal Revenue Service, which is simply a private collection agency for the Federal Reserve. When you see your check stamped, it says, pay to the deposit of the Federal Reserve. What are we going to do about it? We got to tell people what's going on, what's going down. I put out the Illuminati CFR records in 1967. A gentleman in this room helped me get those things mastered and out on the market. And from those records, a lot of flack came down. I met with a fellow named Gary Allen. Well, Gary at the time was said, Anthony, he says, you're a fraud and a phony, and I want you to know that I'm going to expose you. You're talking about the Illuminati. He said, the enemy is not in Washington, D.C. The enemy is in Moscow. So Gary went to work and he started doing some research. And with a lady who later became my secretary, he put together with Larry Abraham a book called None Dare Call It Conspiracy. It sold 5 million copies. I've got about, maybe a half a dozen here. I can't sell anything here, but when you go out in the parking lot with Mr. Kessler and I want to sell you, a handful of books, a handful of tapes, because I want you to have this message. Lucifer 2000 talks about 1,000 points of light. Who wrote the New World Order? You think that George Herbert Walker Bush came up with that? It was the title of Adolf Hitler's second book. The first, Mein Kampf, the second, The New World Order. And when Rudolf Hess got up and said, Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, he was talking about the creation of a new world order. Communazism. August 23rd, 1939. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin met. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Peace Pact, the Communist Peace Pact. A few days later, May 1st, 1939, the Communists and the Nazis invaded Poland. We're talking about one and the same. We're talking about Clintonism, communism with a small c, masking, saying, well, we're going to give you something. We're going to give you jobs. But first of all, we got to take the money that you have left away. And we're going to spend $1.59 for every dollar that we put in. But what the government gives, and I think we all have to know this by now, it must first take away. What it takes away, it must take away with force, or threat of force, or violence, or threat of violence, incarceration, or threat of incarceration. They want to pull this thing out. Have they created AIDS? There is no question. I just finished a tape with Dr. Strecker, a little audio tape. It's called Mega Murder 2000. What did we talk about? We talked about a high school in South Central Los Angeles. Blacks, yes. Dr. Strecker told me on the air, he said that 90% of those kids who gave blood to the Red Cross came back with a report, HIV positive. Not 0990. It's history. In Africa, we're talking about mega murder. We're talking about the most massive murder in the history of mankind, and their bloody hands are dripping. What are we going to do about it? Well, I've been thinking. There's some information you got to know. Dr. Bertrand Russell, you know who he was? In his book, The Impact of Science on Society, he said the final solution, he said at present the population of the world is increasing about 58,000 per diem. War, so far, has had no very great effect on this increase, which continued throughout each of the world wars. War has hitherto been disappointing in this respect. But perhaps bacteriological war may prove effective. If a Black Death could spread throughout the world once every generation, survivors could procreate freely without making the world too full. The state of affairs might be unpleasant, but what of it? I've been working with a fellow named Christian Anders, a German recording star. We've done a little play called The Man Who Created AIDS. I've got that on tape. We need to get that played in the city of Las Vegas. And who was this Dr. Bertrand Russell? Well, he was the teacher. He was a teacher at the University of Peking, now the University of Beijing, in 1923, of Mao Zedong in Zhou Enlai. They mass murdered 66,400,000. I want to get that right. I want you to hear it. 66,400,000 people. That's enough people to string from here about 2/3 of the way to the surface of the moon with human flesh. In the Guinness Book of World Records, it talks about Mao Zedong's murders, out-Hitlering Hitler at the height of his hysteria. Are they using weather as a weapon? Howard Benedict of the Associated Press, December 1974. It stated that by clouding seeding areas 1,000 miles of upwind from a particular country, one could cause severe droughts for years afterward to the target of the country. Then in 74, they talked about a Pentagon study of 1.52 million talking about doing just this. In 1970, they talked about creating some sort of bacteria to be used against the enemy. Well, let me tell you something. The enemy isn't in Moscow. The enemy is you. You are the enemy. Each and every one of you is the enemy of this establishment. And if you don't know that there's a war going on, if you don't know that you're endangered, if you don't know that the black man is an endangered species, you better wake up. Now, they talk, these people talk in globalese. Oh, and Bertrand Russell was to Roosevelt what Roosevelt is to Reagan. You say, oh, Ronald Reagan, he's a conservative, right? He had all of the right-wing rap, tripled the national debt, brought in all of these members of the Council on Foreign Relations. Ronald Reagan, Red Ronnie, that's how they used to call him in Hollywood. The so far left, he makes Fidel Castro look like a member of the John Birch Society. Ronald Reagan, for 13 years, was a member of the United World Federalists. Their goal, to abolish the United States of America. You think, well, now, Anthony, this couldn't possibly happen here. I was with Gary Richard Arnold, Detroit. Where were we? Well, actually, actually crossed the river. We were watching the helicopters come over the Joe Louis Arena. Something was going on. We had just left, and as we were walking out of the arena, a whole new group of people were coming in. And I couldn't understand it because the events were closed for the day. I said, turn on the television. So we looked across the river. Saw the lights, turned on the television, and George Bush was just nominated Vice President of the United States. George Bush from the Skull and Bones. 1948, he laid nude in the coffin in the tomb at Yale University. Oh, by the way, the Skull and Bones came to the United States in 1832. An offshoot of the Bavarian Illuminati. He said, come on now, this couldn't possibly happen. Better think again. It did happen. See, we have the illusion that George Bush is a right-winger. We've been fed the news that Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini were right-wingers. Mussolini was a communist for 19 years before he started the Fascist Party. And look in the Congress of the United States. There's two emblems on each side of the podium up there. It's the fasci. Here's the old Benito and Adolf saying, Benito, do you think they'll ever find out we're liberals? You'd better find out we have a one-party system. Several years ago, I put together this little piece of paper here. This includes this article on mega murder. I brought about a dozen of these papers with me. And you say, well, why would I come up here and try to hustle you on this paper? Because it talks about the control of the Republican Party by this oligarchy. They've got it down to where you're believing that these guys are like the Sharks and the Dragon on the east side of New York. They're the same group. We have a one-party system. We don't have a choice. It's heads, they win, tails, you lose. They've even got it figured so that if the coin lands on its edge, you lose. 1980, George Bush, remember the Trilateral Commission. Jimmy Carter, remember the Trilateral Commission. John Anderson, member of the Trilateral Commission. It's not an election. You're kidding yourself. About the grand jury, you have to get control of it? You're damned right you do. And you got to do that now. So what do we need? We need to incite this revelation. I'm sure that Nancy talked to you about my friend Bill Cooper. Bill called me Sunday morning. He said, Anthony, we've got problems. WWCR was just bombed. They burnt the station down to the ground, destroyed all of the transmitters. I did a show with Bill, and he did 17 hours on secret societies. Station burnt to the ground. The last two shows on the WACO incident. On the WACO incident. Gary Hunt in the very last show on WWCR. Oh, this lady right here. Nancy La Rosa. Please give her another hand. H.L. Mencken said that one can never underestimate the intelligence of the American public. God, how right he was. He said no government is ever in favor of freedom of the individual. It invariably seeks to limit that freedom, if not by overt denial, then by seeking constantly to widen its own functions. All governments, of course, are against liberty. Elections are sort of advanced auctions of stolen goods. And wars, like bridges, are created. They're designed. Wars happen because certain people want them to take place for their own profit and to further a cause they have embraced. We've got the United Nations, but what else do we have to compete with it? Where is the opposition? Where is the manifesto? Well, I've just finished one. It's called Divided We Stand, the Free World Manifesto. It's finished, it's written. Well, it's written, but it's not on the computer. I need help. I'm not going to get down on my knees and beg you for the help, but I need help to get it out. We need it in video. We need it in CD. We need it on audio. We need lecture series. I'm coming up to Las Vegas, and I'm going to do a Lucifer 2000 seminar, May 1st. And I would like those of you here to attend that particular seminar, because we're going to talk with visuals how this all comes together. And I'm going to bring up Dr. Robert Strecker. We've got him on tape tonight. Yeah, I want you to get the tape. Why? So I can make a few bucks? Oh yeah, probably. But is it bucks? Do I really make $1? No. There's no 412.5 grains of silver. These guys are printing that stuff. They're loaning it back to us. And we are not in a recession, we are in a depression. Hotel reservations in Los Angeles, down 52%. There's an invasion from Mexico. An invasion. 10% of the population of Mexico is living in this country illegally. And what's happening to the lower priced jobs? They're going out. I mean, some of the jobs that are taken by people in the lower economic stratus, blacks, are being taken away. And what's happening? The guys are going down on the street. I went down to the Brotherhood Crusade in southwest, well, south central, with my friend, my brother, a black man named LaSalle. There was a fellow out there named Dwayne, and I started talking to Dwayne. And I said, well, I said, what are you doing? What are you here for? He said, well, I'm in prison. They're out letting me out. I'm sort of in a halfway house trying to get a job. I said, well, what have you done before? He says, nothing. I said, well, how old are you? He says, 28. He's got 3 kids. I said, well, how many of the guys out there, out in the street would like jobs? He says, not many that I know. They don't want jobs. They can make more money on the street than they can with a job. This is by design. This is disaster by design. And what they're planning for Los Angeles, they're planning for Las Vegas, Nevada, and all across this country. And I heard there were some tanks out here, right? Anybody know about those tanks? Painted white. What was on the side? United Nations. The Federal Emergency Management Association. America's Gestapo today. The ATF, Gestapo today. They're taking it before your very eyes. And we are so numbed down and dumbed down that we're buying this pap and crap. What do we have to do? I need to get this lady and this man, Eric Leiter, into New York for a press conference. The other day we had Channel 2, the CBS. We had Channel 9, Channel 11, Channel 13, Channel 52, which is a Spanish station in Los Angeles, KNX, number 2 news radio, KFWB, number 1 news radio. We can do it. But it's going to take more than just, me and Nancy and Eric. Bruce, some of you guys. We've got to do something spectacular. We have to rise up together. We have to join together in this fight for the salvation of the country. If you want to live. Because I'm telling you, by the year 2000, there's not going to be any cash. There's going to be a stamp on the back of your hand or on your forehead. And Nancy was talking to you about the Ruby Creek incident. Here, a little dog is running off in the woods thinking that he's heard a deer. They shoot the dog. They shoot the Randy Weaver's 13-year-old kid in the back 3 times. And then the ATF goes over and sees on the porch a woman breastfeeding her baby and shoots her smack between the eyes. Now that reminds me of an incident in Anchorage, Alaska. The ship had come in. The Navy was in town. The Nimitz was out there, and I looked at some people coming into the downtown post office mall. And I invited these sailors in, and they sat around the podium, the microphone. And I said, I want to ask you a question. If the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, said, hey, when you get back in the ship tonight, you guys are to turn your guns on Anchorage and you're to level it to the ground. I said, what would you do? 5 out of the 6 guys said that they would obey orders. And I said, wait a minute. I said, this is an American city. He says, well, you would have to obey orders. I mean, that's what we're told to do. In Nazi Germany, that's what they were told to do. In Las Vegas, Nevada, that's what you're told to do. And you are going down for the count. God bless it, but you're going to go down for the count. You're not going to survive unless you wake up. As their Reich is rising, your rights are falling. For every dollar you lose, they gain. Now the money's going somewhere, it just isn't disappearing. Your loss is their gain. Your profit should be their pain. It gives me pleasure to give them pain. I've been in this thing for 30 years. There isn't anything that I have, or ever had, or ever hope to gain that I'm not willing to invest in this particular fight. But Dan, we're going to have to do it together, and we're going to have to use the talk shows. Lou Epton has done a magnificent job. There's others on Two-Way Talk that have to be contacted by you. You're an army of people. You can reach 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, a million with a simple phone call. You can use the Two-Way Talk shows. The vote came down on the medical issue in Anchorage, and I was told that, well, it's over, Anthony. We've lost 20 votes against freedom of choice in medicine. 16 for. And I got up there and I yelled and I pounded 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 for 4 days. In the state legislature at Juneau, they had more response on that issue than on any other single legislative issue in the state of Alaska. Anchorage Daily Times says, well, he's only got a dozen listeners. Well, we changed that vote from 20 to 16 against to 24 to 12 for. First state in the United States. Can you do it? Yeah. I started bad rapping Patty Caparotto over here in Lincoln County for violating or allowing the violation of people's rights who are going out to Area 51 to see the saucers. Oh, they're not alien saucers. These are saucers made by the U.S. Black Project boys. Patty Caparotto is, as I understand it, she's out of there now, isn't she? I think she stepped down. Lincoln County Sheriff. Got to do a news conference about these people. What is Francis Sue Del Papa? What's her name? Frankie Sue Del Papa. I sent her a letter. I said, now somebody's going to die out there, and the responsibility of this death is going to be on your shoulders. This government is involved in genetic engineering. She said, oh, come on now, Anthony. Couldn't be. Couldn't possibly be. Well, any government that would be involved in the trafficking of hard narcotics is not much of a step further to say that they would be involved in genetic engineering. You all know Bo Gritz, or know Bo. A friend of mine called me. He's sitting in the audience. I don't think he wants to be recognized. But I see a smile on his face because he knew what happened. Nobody would put Bo Gritz on the air. He said, Anthony, can you get this kid? What can you do? So I arranged for an interview with Bo. And Bo about hung up on me maybe 5, 6, 7 times by his own admission. Because I started talking about Red Running, I started talking about the Trilateral Commission, I'm talking about the Council on Foreign Relations. And he's a soldier. He was told you got to obey. You've got to go along with the command. But there was something that sort of registered in Bo's mind. He didn't hang up. And I said, well, Bo, do you have any tape recording of this thing? He said, well, I got it on video. I said, do you have it on audio? Can you play it over the air? He said, no. I said, well, if you got the video, you can turn up the audio on the video and move it, cue it up, and I'm going to rap to the people, which I did. And then he started playing the tape with the Chinese guy, the translator for Kun Sa, saying, "Oh, number one trafficker, heroin, Richard Armitage." I said, "Hold it, Bo, wait a minute, hold on. Richard Armitage, close friend and confidant of George Herbert Walker Bush, personally appointed by the by Just Say No to Drugs, Ronald Wilson Reagan, Mr. 666, and I was talking like that. So, that sort of turned him off. He said, "Oh my God, you're talking about this guy's the Antichrist." So I put out that information. And we talked about Theodore Shankly from Laos. And we talked about Santos Trafficante with the mafia and the distribution and all these millions and millions of money coming in to support this to finance the Black Project. I said, well, we've got to put it in a picture. And here it is. That's General Kunsal talking to Bo Gritz and Lance Trimmer over at the far left, saying to Kunsal, who is responsible? Who did this? The #1 trafficker of heroin in the United States of America, Richard Armitage, Assistant Secretary of Defense. From the logbooks of Kunsal, #1 drug trafficker in the world. Now, the Black Projects, what are they doing? Saucers? Oh yeah, sure. Did they develop them? I don't think so. The Nazis had the Haunebu 2, 3, and 4 in flight. They called them the Foo Fighters. They had the Vril 1. I've got pictures of them. I've got pictures of them here in a book. This is one of the things I took out from the parking lot of the little alien about 120 miles north of here. Configuration of the craft. Are these things real? Oh yeah, they're real. Somebody came up to me in Anchorage and showed me a picture that was taken from the DMSP. This is DMSP, Defense Meteorological Satellite Photo, coming up about 60 kilometers southeast of Vladivostok. Something about the size of a small aircraft carrier, leaving the atmosphere between 4,000 and 5,000 miles per hour. What is it? I don't know, but I'll guarantee you the government knows. Here's very small pictures of some of the craft. Here's one of the Haunebu. This is the Haunebu. They had this operation, 1943. 1,500 German scientists and doctors came over there. 1,500. What happened to these guys? Dr. Werner von Braun. You ever heard of him? He's one. Walter Dornberger. Ever hear of him? Head of the Bell Aerosystems, well, thing at Textron. Dornberger was head of the Nordhausen concentration camp. 20,000 died. In communist China, they have some 7,668 death camps. 23 million incarcerated. An attrition rate of 25%. For those of you who have trouble adding, it's 5,750,000 people who die annually. Making slave labor product. You go into a store, you buy something made in China, don't. You can start buying soap made from China. Don't. Lampshades. Good God, what does it take? They have out-Hitlered Hitler. The streets are bloody in Beijing. They cut down students. And what does the President of the United States do? He increases aid. $15 billion to buy what? Military and atomic hardware for the communist Chinese? Oh, to defend themselves against the Soviet Union. If you think that they'd let the Soviet Union go by, you better think again. Old lies for new. I think there's a book by the title. You've been conned. You've been had. You've been screwed. I am more concerned about the screwing that we're getting than the screwing that the Jennifer's got. Because this is for real. I don't care whether Hillary is sleeping with, Jennifer, or Jennifer is sleeping with Bill. It makes no difference to me. We're being screwed. Your children are being screwed. Your children, your grandchildren, and their children will be enslaved. Adolf Hitler talked about a 1,000-year Reich. George Bush talks about 1,000 points of light. The New World Order was written by Adolf Hitler. The New World Order was promoted by George Bush. We can't think Republican, Democrat, sharks and dragons anymore. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. In fact, hell, it never did work. Life, liberty, property, these three rights are so bound together as to be essentially one right. To give a man his life, but to deny him his liberty, is to take from him all that makes life worth living. To give him his liberty, but to take from him the property, which is the fruit and badge of his liberty, is to still leave him a slave. The next step in the logical chain after life, liberty, and property is privacy. The right to be unmolested, left alone. Without this right, each of the other three is compromised and vulnerable to destruction by an omnipotent state, Supreme Court Justice Sutherland. We've had it. It's going down. As they get stronger, we get weaker. As they get healthier, we get sick. This is not a recession, it's depression, and it's by design. It's important that you know about the Illuminati. I talked to you about the last show about this WACO incident, the truth against the big lie. The station is burnt down. The transmitters are knocked out. Well, I printed the Illuminati literature, the folders, the jackets, made the records in Hollywood. The planet was firebombed. It was wiped out. But as if by magic, it's just God in heaven, looking out in the planet, there's ashes everywhere. A little section right in the center wasn't burned. And in that section contained the plates for the Illuminati CFR records. I printed up 100 more sets. I wanted to bring some of them up here today. The collector's items. The stuff that you hear now is maybe the 20th or 25th generation, down and down and down. It's all scratched and you can't even make it out. But I've allowed that bootlegging to go on for 20 years because I wasn't interested in the money. I was interested in the message. So you want to contact me in the parking lot? Say, Anthony, I'd like to get a set of Illuminati records. Yeah, I want you to have it. That's why I made it. Not just for you, because most of you who are here are already educated. We have to take the message and the show on the road. Nancy La Rosa, Eric Leiter have got to do it. Eric's willing to give up. Are you willing to give up all your property?
Already did.
Already did.
She's got it.
She's got power of attorney. About $23 million of property. But he doesn't have a dime. It's got to be sold. I've got artwork. I've got whatever I've got is going to go into this fight. Everything. I see Tony over there from the People's Press. People's Press came up. Stand up, would you, Tony? If you don't know her, give her a hand. She did a job and a half. They came out in the street bucking the big boys. They're now out of business, but they tried. Nancy's place was rifled. They took her fax. They took her television. They took her recorder. They took her camera, trying to put her out of business. They don't want meetings like this. This isn't popular with the establishment. And I hope not. See, because we're talking about things, then they have to come up and come forth with some of the popular science. Times Mirror Magazine, March 1993. America's $1 billion flying 4,400 mile per hour ramjet spy plane. Well, they're only admitting to this because they've got stuff that will blow your mind. I've got a little documentary tape. No name on it, but it's an update on what's going down. I could probably move it and put it in my briefcase and maybe sell a few in the parking lot if I had those interested to find out what's really going down out there. The 3 people who went out to the Tikaboo Valley last June, 2 of them were my listeners in Anchorage, Alaska. 2 girls and 1 guy. They sat down, 120 miles north of here. It was a Wednesday. About 15 minutes later, the Wackenhut SS comes up and pays them a visit. Do you have family in Berlin? They wanted their names, their driver's license, social security number. They asked them if they had any cameras. They were recording their conversations. In the morning, when they heard this noise, they looked out the window and there's a helicopter about 15 feet over the car taking pictures. Let me tell you what transpired. The Wackenhut said, well, this is dangerous out here, and you've got to get out of here because something could happen to you. I mean, they would use this for a test site, years ago. You might step on an unexploded bomb. They said, well, this is government property. It's Bureau of Land Management property, BLM, we're going to stay. I said, all right, we've given you a friendly warning. They were out there about 20 minutes later. From behind them, from the Groom Lake area, they heard this roar coming, not above, nothing flying overhead, something underneath. They described it like a huge subway, like an earthquake, but not quite. Whatever it was immense, and it roared across the valley. About a minute later, they look at one girl and says, oh my God. And she looks up and there's this big nova thing about 6 the size of the moon. And for about an hour and 5 minutes, they watched what could be best described as a planned mock alien invasion. Now, why in the hell would the Black Project always be doing something like that? They want to scare the hell out of you. They want to kill you. They want to scare you. 1939, H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds, Orson Welles. Orson Welles. Several people got up there and committed suicide. They said, oh my God, the aliens are coming in. Well, they may have developed some sort of aliens in the Frankenstein factories over there. They've got a small army of Igors. What are the guys doing? What are they making? What happened to Dr. Mengele? 1,500 German scientists involved in genetic engineering, involved in atomic energy, and these anti-gravitational flying discs came here to develop the Black Projects. What do they want to do? They want to take you out. They want to bring us under. Is it possible? It's more than possible. Is it probable? It's more than probable. Is it happening?
Yes.
You bet your sweet bippy it's happening. And it's happening now. And you got to get this message. A few years ago, I took a look at this bulletin by Dr. Well, this is an article by Dr. William Campbell Douglas, Who Murdered Africa. In South Africa, and this is not one of the target areas where they hit with the smallpox vaccine shots that were tainted with AIDS. We're talking now 60% HIV positive. It's history. It's history. What do I want you to do? I want you to get a tape. What do I want you to do with the tape? To listen to it and say, hey, oh my God, we got problems. Wonderful, terrible. And now that I know it, what am I going to do? Don't buy a tape. Don't read a book. Don't get on the air. Don't be informed. Bury your head in the sand and you're going to get your ass shot away. Don't get informed unless you're going to do something about it. It's going to take all of us together. Divided we stand. United we fall. When Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but rather what you can do for your country, I say, no, that's not the way it goes. I say, ask what your government can do for you, not what you can do for your government, because your government is your servant, and we, the people, are the master. By the way, did you think that Jack Kennedy invented that? Jack Kennedy did not invent that. Adolf Hitler coined that phrase. Joseph Goebbels coined that phrase. That's what went down then. The Free World Manifesto, we need to have that out. We need to have a geopsychological warfare center. We need to be organized. I'm a very disorganized guy, and my friend who's sitting out there in the middle of this audience understands that. He's seen me go at this thing for a long period of time. He says, Anthony, calm down, cool down, keep your head on this thing. He's been in this fight. And we've got to do it. We've got to do it now. Is there any questions? Let's open it up for some questions. From anybody. Yes?
Sounds like you're trying to raise the consciousness. What's the silver bullet at that point? What direction are you heading?
Okay. Grand jury investigations? Yes. Of what's coming down here at Area 51? Yes. Impeachment? Yes. A second Nuremberg trials? Yes. Not just simply the consciousness. We have to make people aware like they have never been aware. We have to use shock treatment. We have to shock them into reality. If we get the documentation showing that, well, in fact, there's one, I don't want to mention that because if somebody on the other side was here, I don't want to mention it. But if we get certain documentation and expose this to the public, if we take this show on the road, if we make a campaign out of it, we can use their money, their media, their machinery, and their men against them. That's what we've got to do. We have to make a massive change in our lifestyle. We have to make a massive change. And we've got to do that now. There's ways to win this war. Like I say, in the state of Alaska, they had the AMA out there. I was one guy on one radio station, 100,000 watts. But we won. We won because it was collective. All of the people here can win. Can you change the destiny of the state of Nevada? Absolutely. Can you have freedom of choice in medicine? Absolutely. Can you get rid of Frankie Sudell Papa? Absolutely. Can you get rid of what's going down here at Area 51? Absolutely. There's no question about it. You can do it. You must do it. You have to do it. There's nobody else. Nobody else is standing in the wings. Nobody there. It says exit. That's the way out. We've got to do it. Next question. Yeah, back here.
In light of what you're saying, we have a bill in the state of Nevada legislature, Assembly Bill 253, which will nationalize the National Guard. We'll put it under federal control. This is coming up in Wednesday. This is exactly in line with what you're talking about, the government taking over our national sovereignty.
Well, the sovereignty, listen, you're not free. I'm not speaking to a lot of people who are free. If you think that, we're not free right now, and yes, we have to do that. And how can you bring this message? How can you say what you're saying to me, to more than just to me? How can you say it to all of Las Vegas and all of Nevada and all of the United States of America? How can you do that? By the two-way talk programs, by Lou Epton, by Art Bell.
What we have to do here is the governor and tell them to shoot that doggone bill down, because this is coming up for vote Wednesday.
Mary Martinez has got a number. Can we use your number if you want to contact me? What's that number?
453
453
25
25
29.
29. Mary, will you help me hustle some tapes out there when this thing is over? Okay. Yeah.
That particular one that's coming up to vote, you've got to remember, if you're old enough to remember the civil rights when the National Guard down in the southern state was federalized, so that they could not use the National Guard to protect the rights of the citizens of the state. It was federalized by the president when they did the integration down in Alabama, wasn't it? The governor stood on the steps and denied the Negroes the right to come in. Right or wrong, the point is they nationalized the National Guard, at which point it took it out of control of the governor, put it under control of the president. You can't do that. So if we beat that, they can still do it. The only thing we can do is make a constitutional amendment which makes it illegal only with the permission of the governor. Although that might not be such a good idea.
I want to bring out something else. I just happen to have one more poster here. So it says, this is a picture of Joseph P. Kennedy when he was ambassador to the court of St. James. He's with Adolf Hitler. Yeah, Joe, but does the Ford Foundation really have a better idea? We have over here the Maltese cross. We have over here on Kennedy the Maltese cross. We've outlined it a little bit because it was a bit dark. You got to take a look at the symbology. You got to take a look at what's ordo ab chaos. Chaos and control. Yes, back here.
We need to have more of a detailed plan. We have 235 million or so sleeping Neanderthals out there with a Bart Simpson mentality still making love to their beer bottle.
Yeah, you're right. Now, believe it or not, I have a plan. Do I have a plan? Yeah, I've got a plan. Got a manifesto? Yes. I said this issue has to be addressed. It has to come out. There has to be opposition to the United Nations. The Free World Manifesto calls for the development of a free world alliance. An alliance of nations which will not dissolve the individual integrity of mankind, which will support the divine differences of mankind, to allow for integration, segregation, separation in tribal, linguistic, religious, and ethnic and political nation states. We have to do that. We can't all dissolve into one big mass, because then it's a one world government. That's really what it's all about. Somebody back in the, yes?
So you value the separation into entities and political and cultural entities rather than merging everybody together?
Yeah, I don't want to say everybody merged together, because freedom is choice. Choice is freedom.
More countries.
Without choice, there is no freedom. That's what it's all about. It's the bottom line. And I've taken a look at, back to Time magazine. Uncle Bill wants you. What's Clinton's plan to raise taxes will do to your wallet? Listen, my wallet's already tapped. He wants your life. This guy's a Rhodes Scholar, member of the Trilateral Commission. Newsweek, tax, spend, cut, little teeny cut, big taxes, lots of spending, no cut. We're going down for the count. You, one other, back here.
What'd you say about, you're more or less worldwide, but we can make a stand right here. How do you feel about citizens attending county commission, city council meetings, and making their checks out instead of to the Federal Reserve Bank, to the Department of Treasury? Those kind of little things that everyone can do. How do you stand on those issues?
Well, I'm against the Federal Reserve. I'm against the income tax. What this country needs is to have free enterprise and free enterprise now. If I were President of the United States, I would abolish the privately owned Federal Reserve, and I would abolish the income tax. I would abolish the ATF, and I would have a complete turnaround. When I say a complete turnaround, what military actions were taken would be to dissolve the remaining pockets of resistance to freedom.
What about the city and county?
Well, you got to start right here. You start where you're at. You got to work with what you have where you're at. And this lady here.
Yes. People, I think, coming back the way I
national sales tax. It sounds great, I think it would work. I really do, but get rid of IRS.
You don't have to have it. There's things in the Constitution that provide for the government.
I have another one too. A lady, D.B. Kidd in Colorado,
Uh-huh.
is trying to have the IRS and the Federal Reserve System, or the Federal Reserve Act repealed. And
Well-
she's trying to get 30 million signatures, and these people have that.
Yeah, I did get 3.5 million signatures on Proposition 23 to abolish the Federal Reserve. This is a fellow called Mafia Mike. He's a pizza entrepreneur, that's why he got the title. He's describing what happened up there in the Tikaboo Valley. We're so close we can break this story. George Knapp's doing a hell of a job on it. We can break this story, yes.
Why is Clinton pressing so hard to get the gays into the military?
Well, maybe,
What's he going
I
to
don't
do?
know. It's not just getting their votes, it demoralizes the military, and he's demilitarizing the military. And if they're facing an enemy, I don't know, what are they going to do, blow them away?
They'll engage the enemy.
Yeah, engage the enemy, yeah.
And pull them away.
Any other questions? We're going to do a Lucifer 2000 seminar on May 1st, and I would like you to attend. I don't know where it's at. I'm going to have to, the people who are in this auditorium tonight's going to tell me where it's going to be at. We're going to have Dr. Strecker. We will have Jordan Maxwell. We'll have myself. Hopefully we'll have Richard Hoagland. We'll have Norio Hayakawa, maybe. The message has to come out. We've got to do it. We've got to do it where we are with what we've got. I am concerned about the immediate development of this Free World Alliance. We have to have this alliance alive and well and functioning, and we have to take this message to many small countries throughout the world. And we have to do this, it has to be formalized. We have to start recognizing those tribal and linguistic nation states that don't exist. I was arrested at Jan Smuts Airport in Johannesburg in 1976. I had worked with the Bureau of State Security, which is equivalent to the Central Intelligence Agency, in the sense that I was informing them that there was going to be a Soweto riot about 9 to 10 days before it occurred. And I said it was going to be not developed from Soweto, but developed from the Central Intelligence Agency. It came down. I thought that they would be happy with this information. I thought that they would welcome it. When I got off the plane in South Africa, I went up to this last in the turnstile. The fellow looked down and saw my picture and looked over to the side of the room, and he motioned 2 guys with using machine guns to come over. And they escorted me away. Interpol, they have this thing down. We have to incite this revelation. The Illuminati records we're going to make into CDs or tapes. I want you to have those. The Lucifer 2000, I don't know where it went. I've got some over here. A stack of them. What am I going to do with the money? I'll pay the presser, pay the printer. Yeah. But then I want to take this show on the road. Seminars across the country. We've got to do it now. The last question over here. And I'm going to wrap up. Is anybody, or is that it?
How do you feel about the local newspaper here?
Distortion by design. What can I tell you that you don't already know? I mean, you live here. You know what it is. Mr. Kessler, come over here for a minute. Where is this parking lot where we can meet and talk after the show? Right over here? Outside here? Where's your van?
That one?
Okay.
The van is outside and to the left, okay? And this is the main entrance, and it's right, as you exit, it will be on your right-hand side.
A Dodge van.
It's a Dodge van conversion, so you won't be able to miss it.
What color?
Well,
Well, anyhow, I'm going to be out there, and
Where all the people are
We
crowding
need-
around it, hell with that.
we really need to support the People's Grand Jury. We need to support Eric Leiter, Nancy La Rosa. We need to get involved in these projects. And if you're really serious about some hardball, and you want to get into this arena, and you want to play, and it's for keeps, you can come in. And Nancy, what's your number again? Mary. You're
It's 453
453
2549.
2529. And we're going to make some tapes on this Area 51 thing. We've got a tape which is going to be talking about the Panic Project, because they're going to put us into the Panic Project, and LA is going to go up again in flames. And we've dealt with that. We've got a new tape on that as well. So it's very important that we put it all together. Thank you very much.
Folks, we all want to thank. Hello. Anyone who hasn't signed up to be a participant, this is your opportunity. Get on board now.
I've been told by this gentleman that there's going to be copies available of the videotape. There's so much more to say, and I could go on for about 8 or 9 hours and have, and I'm not going to do that to you. But I'm going to meet you out in the parking lot if you'd like, and we'll put this thing together. Thanks. See Roger the Dodger down. Yeah, you can.
Oh yeah, you make copies? Yes, again. What's your name? What is there in the Griswold? Oh, Rich. That's right. And 459 1045. All right, and I'll try to get these out as quick as you can. Okay.
Area 51, genetic engineering. The Bill Carton kids, where do you think they're going?
I guess they could get them, they could do anything, they could listen to them. Yes, it is. It is. They burned it. I know they burned it because they had to hide the evidence. They burned it. And that's against the law. You have to have an autopsy. That's against the law. They broke the
He needs to be there. He's going to have to be there every day, probably.
So where you been, guy?
Tell them to get him down there.
They want to go in and change the evidence. I don't want to know
You have to load her. She goes to the
Hi, Jerry White. I recognized your name as
You're in with Bo Gritz.
Is this always? Bring a copy in. Chronologically in order.
Thanks a lot.
Adding a few pieces of significant information to it.
That's where we all are. And he's sitting there with a
April 5th, 1993.
But I'll tell you this. Now I understand somebody saying anybody who's before testified.